Dr. Hacker, it doesn't appear as though you really paint a very pretty picture of white people in general insofar as you see white-black race relations. Can you expound on that, sir?
Well, interestingly, you use the phrase race relations. I don't think there are many relations between black and white people. What I would say very simply is that those of us who are born with this pigmentation have certain privileges, things we can take for granted, we have the safety, the security, so we don't want to lose this. Now, this also means that, and here's the unpleasant part, that so much of our safety, security, status comes from putting down black people, saying we're not like them. We're Europeans. We're more highly evolved. We've got talents they don't have. And that's where you get, the flip side of this, which really is the ugly side of racism.
Mm-hmm. Well, how much does sex and sexuality really have to do with race relations, particularly between white men and black men?
Well, if you take white men and black men, let's take it two ways.
Okay.
If a white man is walking down the street and he sees a couple, a very attractive black man, really masculine, and with him a very attractive white woman, very white, we'll make her blonde, he looks at that woman and he wonders, this is the white man, what does she see in him? What do they do together? And it really drives us, up the wall, because she's a woman who could choose, a white guy, but she chooses a black guy. And that really bothers us. And as a result, what we want to do is some way take that black man away, because we begin to say, hey, is she having a better time with him, in various ways than she can with me? And so he's competition for us. And you know how people react to competition.
The idea that white men are obsessed in black men is a complex observation that is rooted in deep sociological, psychological, historical, and pop culture ideas. So it's very common to see instances whereby these white men are hugely invested or obsessed with trying to either imitate or suppress the black masculinity. Kindly watch the rest of this episode to the end to see how black Americans are reacting to it, while I come with my commentaries at the end of it.
All right, but here's something I really need for you guys to understand about this. The target is not white women. No, they're not really making this content for white women. Do white women occasionally enjoy videos of muscular black men? Sure. But really what they're doing is cultivating the audience of white men who actually have a little bit of a fetish for this idea of white women having sex with black men. I think that this is something that a lot of people do not really seem to understand, but there is no one more invested in the British Broadcasting Company and all of its many subsidiaries than white men. White men have a lot of fixation on black men and what they perceive to be their sexual superiority, right? What do I mean when I say that, right? I'm someone who's predominantly dated outside of my race, not because I have a particular fascination, but because of where I grew up and the fact that I have not lived for most of my life around other black people, right? Something that a lot of white men will ask me is if I prefer white men or black men. And really what they're asking, though they're not trying to just ask this out loud, is whether or not I am used to being with men who are very well endowed. Now, the answer to that question is yes. But I guess I've just lucked out when it comes to white men, I guess. White men often have this belief that black men are more well endowed and better at sex than them, right? And some of these men will internalize that by having a particular fixation on white women having sex with black men. And they particularly get off on this idea of white women being submissive to black men, right? That's a really, really big thing. And I would go as far as to say that most black men, especially black men who are somewhat muscular, have experienced white couples coming up to them at least once in their life and approaching them for a bull scenario, right? Bull as a term comes from a lot of questionable history between black men and white women, and how black men factored into slavery, right? Because black men were quite often seen as bulls to produce more productive slave children, right? So yeah, but there's a reason why so much of cuckoldry content is racialized. There's a reason why so much of it is about a white woman having sex with a black man who is, of course, superior to this white man. And the thing is, a lot of white men who feel this way are conservatives. They are men who do actually, to some degree, have a fear around this idea of black men taking over, black people becoming powerful, and they eroticize it, right? Under sex work, or I guess I don't know how to describe this, sex media, something like that, I guess, corn. You will see this represented under the title the the Black New World Order, which is essentially the white nationalist sexualization of white genocide, right? This idea that one day black people will become powerful and they will control everything. And one of the main things that they will do, of course, because they are fixated on this, of course, black men, is have sex with white women. And so there is this way that a lot of white men especially sort of get off on this. And one of the ways that they get off on this is the idea that once the Black New World Order comes into shape, they will offer up these white women as, I guess, penance for all of their ills, right? Because, of course, in this fantasy, there is this idea that these black men are going to, in the way that white men abused black people collectively, abuse white women specifically sexually. Additionally, I'm actually working on something about this right now. But you'll notice that in cuckoldry, something that will quite frequently pop up is cross-dressing. Because a lot of white men, when they envision being, dominated sexually by a black man, they envision themselves as becoming feminine, right? So black men dominating these white men, it's a feminizing thing. Of course, two men can dominate or submit to each other, and that can work just fine, right? But it's feminized in a lot of these white men who are predominantly heterosexuals' minds, right? And that's another thing too. I made a point of pointing out that for a lot of these men, right, they're attracted to women, but they're mostly kind of admiring the men. Like, there's for sure a sizable part of his audience who enjoys watching very masculine men who are black, do that thing, right? So they're probably watching him already with some of those thoughts in the back of their mind. Now he creates this content where he's got a white woman who is so comfortable with him, so calm around him, that she's willing to clean up after him, right? So this becomes something that they eroticize, this just idea of a white woman picking up after this black man. Because of course, in their view, in their very racist view in reality, black people are supposed to remain in a position of perpetual subservience to white people. But in their fetishism, they envision black men as being powerful, and this idea of a white woman being submissive to this black man as kind of this thing that they wouldn't typically do. And some men will even enjoy the idea of having their partner have sex with a black man because in their view, that's not typically what she likes. She doesn't really typically like this, so she's being submissive to me by giving herself to this black man, right? This black man who she wouldn't otherwise be interested in. Sometimes these things shift a bit when the black man in the dynamic is actually powerful, right? Like, the men who sit around and are freaked out about white genocide are the same men who watch this content, right? They watch this content, and a huge part of it is that it's so far out of the realm of possibility that it would have to happen in fantasy. And isn't it so great that they're, in this context, being nice to black men by giving them white women, right? Or themselves dressed as white women. So once it starts to become too real, once a black man actually can be president, once a white woman actually does prefer having sex with this black man over this white man, sometimes that's where things get a little bit complicated. And unfortunately, a lot of black men who entertain these race play dynamics, they find that out the hard way, because they might have had an experience where they're really nice to him and they're doing all these things for him. They're rolling out the red carpet for him. But right when it starts to become a little bit too real, that's when the actual reality of their racism that was always quite present starts to come out. Right? So all of these things are kind of connected, and it's weird that it is, but that's kind of why this content exists. And that's why it doesn't make sense to you, but there's for sure a group of white men out there who are self-pleasuring to it.
This is reason 10,000 why racism is rooted in jealousy. Tell me why I received this message of a white man saying, well, you look like you've dated black men, and if you have, none of us want you. I didn't know this was an attitude that a lot of white men hold, but apparently they think that white women who sleep with black men or with brown men, they become tainted in some way, and they no longer want that white woman. But this is absolutely rooted in jealousy, because why would it matter to them unless black men made them feel insecure? There is something about black men sleeping with white women who they view as their possessions that really gets them feeling angry, like they aren't good enough, because let's face it, they aren't. And white men are obsessed with black men's penises. Like, they talk about it often online. You'll see comments like, I bet she takes black dick or whatever. And it's fucking weird and genuinely unsettling how much they talk about black men. If they weren't insecure, if they didn't feel jealous, then why would they talk about it? They wouldn't. Genuinely so embarrassing on their end, because quite literally anybody can see through like what they're doing.
So I live in a small town, right? It's a predominantly white area. And one thing I've learned about dating in this area is if you want to make like a certain white dude mad, let him find out that the white girl he has a crush on is into black dudes. That boy mad. And as always, I'm not talking about all white men, right? But I'm talking, there's a certain type of white dude, if he finds out that a white girl likes, the white girl that he likes black dudes, boy, homie be all in her comments. Future single mom, all like any polite slur, that I'm gonna call it a polite slur. Any polite slur that he can possibly think of is getting thrown in that girl's comments. Personally, I don't understand. If a woman that I like don't like me, I don't care what she does. But boy, oh boy, when that white dude like a particular white girl and she only date black dudes, ooh wee.
It's pretty crazy how much hate black men get. Honestly, it's disgusting behavior that I've personally seen time and time again. I feel like there's so many people that just want to turn their head and ignore it or participate in the continuous cycle of prejudice, judgment, racism, discrimination, really stupid stereotypes. It's sickening. And as far as a woman of any color being with somebody of any shade of black, you do receive some hate. You do receive looks. Me being a pale ginger, I tend to ignore the looks because I've been stared at my whole life, and it's really no different for me. It's like they're gonna stare no matter what, so might as well let them. And I know we look good as hell together, like, let's be honest. So that's that. But this is why I make these videos. This is why I talk about it, is because there's not many people that want to talk about it, period. And there's not a lot of people who look like me that want to talk about it. And I'm just tired of looking the other way. Like, I've dealt with it in my own family for so long, and I feel like at this point in my life, I finally come to the acceptance and full understanding of what it's... I mean, I'll never truly know what it's like to be a black person, period, but especially a black man. And I only say that because I see it, because I'm with a black man. But I can't sit back and just watch and listen to people talk ignorance, and it just continues. And there's people out there that you have to be careful of, because they'll pretend to be your best friend. They'll pretend to be an advocate for the black community, and they're not. And they're not. And they're just using you for whatever personal gain that they want from you, which, who knows? Who knows, honestly.
As a black woman, this has even happened to me. Like, the way that black men are living in other races' minds is insane. Like, when I got with my ex, who is Greek, like I live in Greece, when I got with him and we were like fighting and everything, I call his pee small. Now, is it small? No. Yes, relative to what I have experienced, maybe it would be considered small. That's not the point here. Then he goes, I'm sorry I can't be a black man. I'm sorry I can't be a black guy. What? Who said anything about black men? Who, even in Greece, they're still thinking about black men. It is truly insane. And maybe it's not exactly like this girl, because she's obviously, I don't know if she's white, but she's obviously not black. But it's just the way that, like, this has legit happened to me, where people will ask me, oh, have you been with someone bigger than me? Like, what race was he? Why do you care? To me, it's so strange. Like, why? Do you want to sleep with him? Like, I genuinely don't have an explanation for it, but it all feeds into this overarch of, like, racism and prejudice that is just so confusing to me. Why is a black man's pee-pee in your mind as a straight man? And to see that this is even happening to the other girls, and they're like saying things like, oh, I hope you don't give it a black guy. Why? Like, do they really? Like, I one time heard from a guy that he felt like I don't know how code words to use, but he felt like a woman's parts stretch out. And so the thought is, like, he didn't want to be with the girl who was with a black guy because her parts would have been stretched out, and obviously he is not confident in his own size. So much so that he's just like, just don't talk to black guys, don't do anything with a black man, because he feels like those parts are not gonna fit him anymore. Oh my god. Guys, can we go back to sex ed? What is happening here? It's truly concerning. And, like, as a black woman, I feel like the reverse doesn't happen so much. I don't hear about it, at least. Where I've heard about, like, what the girl was saying in the video, I've heard about that so many times. Like, But if we're gonna switch it right, I don't ever really hear white girls saying, "Oh, you should never get with a black girl." Like, do you guys hear that? Have you had experience with that? Like, I just don't really understand where that's coming from. Where is that coming from? And the fact that this is happening to so many people of different nationalities, it's like, what the fuck, guys? Like, chill. It doesn't matter. I promise you the race does not matter. Like, if that girl was gonna leave you, I mean, why would she be thinking about that? Like, that's just so weird.
Let's be honest. We all know this shit ain't got nothing to do with a motherfucking beard. White men are jealous of black men, especially in the army. You see it every day. No matter what color, race, anything you see how them black men get treated. Even from basic training, I've never heard a drill sergeant say to a white male, "Oh, you think you're back on the block." They only say that to white dudes. I mean, to black dudes. They only say it to the black soldiers. That right there is just evident in how racist and stereotypical they are. But when it comes down to it, what they be the most mad about is that black people naturally and effortlessly exceed the standard physically in everything they do. And white men, while they can, and they do, they have to put a lot more work in it. With black people, that shit come easily. So they're jealous. It's really that simple. Those are my thoughts.
So white people will never leave black people alone, and I'm going to tell you why. White society's obsession with black people isn't new. It's centuries old. If you think about slavery, colonialism, and exploitation, from the start, white wealth in America was built off the backs of black bodies. Sugar, cotton, tobacco, rice. This wasn't just economics. It was a system where white people's very identity was shaped around controlling and owning and watching black bodies. But here's the wild contradiction in all of this, right? While trying to dehumanize us, white culture has always been obsessed with us, right? They copied our music, our style, our language, our food, even our rhythm, all while denying us basic rights. Think about jazz and rock and hip hop and fashion, all born out of black genius, only to be taken, watered down, and sold back to the world with a white face on it. So why can't they just stay away? Because in a system that is built both on exploitation and envy, distance is impossible. White supremacy depends on keeping black people in place, close enough to use, control, or imitate, but never free enough to threaten the hierarchy. It's a sick paradox, fear and fascination at the same damn time. On a psychological level, it's projection. White folks will project their guilt, their fear, and their insecurities onto blackness, and then turn around and crave the very life, culture, and resilience they tried to destroy. It's like they want the sauce, but not the struggle. Now, to be real, not every white person acts like this, but the system, the way whiteness has defined itself against blackness, makes it so this obsession keeps resurfacing. Whether it's over policing or culture appropriation or trying to legislate our lives, it always comes back to the old need to dominate mixed with a quiet desire to be what they can't.
You know, one topic that baffles me is the white people's obsession with black people. Some of it goes back to the fact that they don't see us as fully human, because for all of enslavement and even past that time, 3/5 human and all these things, we were seen as property, just a taskmaster, a do boy, a do girl, some other we almost like livestock. And so some of that, I feel, has permeated the psyche of those that descend from people that were enslavers. And some people that, because not all white people's lineage, like not all white people come from people that actually had the money or means to own people, but they acted in overseer positions. Best believe that they participated in the oppression of us, of our people. And I started digging into it because, Yesterday, I kept seeing pop up on my timeline white people have trying or attempting to co-opt the word black fatigue to say they are tired of the ghetto, blah, 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 blah. When essentially black fatigue is what we experience just dealing with the systems and the day-to-day existing within this place that we find ourselves. The same way they took woke. They trying to take black fatigue, but we're not going for that. We're going to continue to tell the truth about that terminology. But I asked AI, and I hate AI, but I asked AI, why are white people obsessed with black people? And it responded as the people that actually programmed AI, because this is what it said. The query expresses a harmful stereotype and generalization suggesting that white people are obsessed with black people. But ChatGPT and OpenAI and all those things have been found to have racist perceptions because of the people that they only are able to pull the information as what's been presented to them, and the vast majority have been programmed by those. But so they see us as things versus as people, right? They feel they know better than us, and the constant survey because they were pointing finger telling us what to do back then, they feel like they still know more than us or better than us how we need to conduct ourselves in life. They don't want us to occupy spaces that are above the stations that they feel that we should occupy. Thus, all this talk around DEI and meritocracy, which is nonsensical. Let's be very fucking clear. But they want us in a subservient. It's about maintenance of social hierarchy. And when they see black people rising above certain stations, oh, they all up in arms. But my thing, and not only that, the implicit bias, and then they threatened by black joy and all these things. And that's why people say, well, if they can't stand us so much, why they can't leave us alone? Because they feel like they're still supposed to be dictating our movements, dictating, because, you know, we could not laugh on the plantation. We could not openly express ourselves. There were so many restrictions on us just existing. And these new white people are the offspring of those people. And so they still feel that they are supposed to be in the mix. And that's why when y'all be passing out passes to come to cookouts, I don't come from that. My family didn't play that shit. So I don't know nothing about it. At all. No. Absolutely not. We gotta do better. And then some of y'all are just so loose with information online. And I know you want to share it with your people, but you need to come up with something else. Your left hand ain't never supposed to know what your right hand is doing, and vice versa. Y'all just spilling the beans. Just constantly just spilling the beans. Just share. And that is part of the problem, because we are so community-based and we're so open and welcoming to people. And that is how they came in and poisoned people against one another and captured so many people, because we were just like, oh, these are different people, but they are people. But are they, though? Are they? It's got to be a line. Got to be a line. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, that is something that has been on my mind. Why are you so obsessed? Why? And a lot of it is because you think they really do feel like they still own us. Some of them. We don't know no better.
Well, if you've watched to this end, thank you once again, and let's get down to it. And before I continue, I will kindly request that you hit the like, subscribe, and the share button, as this will go a long way in supporting my channel. Well, one would ask, why are white men obsessed with black men? Well, this goes back to the colonial and slavery era period, whereby the black masculinity was either viewed as being primitive or ultra-masculine by their white plantation owners. And this given the fact that looking at it from a sociological point of view, there is always this male social anxiety between male individuals. And once one of them appears to either be better or have better physical prowess, it is very obvious for another individual to feel inferior or threatened. So for the white men, they developed this